There we go. Now, what's it like to be an archer and a trapper? Well, we're going to find out from an archer and a trapper what it's like to do all these fun things, and we're just going to have a good conversation. Remember, you can watch this on the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group. You can also catch the videos on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself, as well as on archtalk101.com. Now, if you want to listen to it, you can listen to it on Spotify, also Audible. That's where you can listen to the podcast. So my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host today on Arch Talk 101, and we have Bob on the line with us, and we're gonna see what his world's like today. How you doing, Bob?
Oh, I'm great. How are you, Roy?
Doing great. So how about if you introduce yourself and give us a little story of where you come from and what you're doing, and just so we can get to know you.
All righty. Well, I was listening to your last guest, and we're going to have some similarities here. My name's Bob Magyar, and I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So yeah, I know your last guest was from up in Cleveland. Not exactly probably the place you would expect a lot of archers and outdoorsmen to come from, but to be honest with you, it's a real big area for people who enjoy the outdoors. Cleveland's kind of surrounded on all sides. Ohio's a funny state. You got like five big cities, and the rest is all rural. So
Yeah.
I started out. I started out in as far as bow hunting goes. I kind of started out on two ways there. I participated in the archery in schools program, which I'm thankful to see is still around. So
Yeah.
I started getting interested there. And my uncle, my dad's older brother, he taught me to shoot a longbow, and he was pretty instrumental in getting me involved in the outdoors. My father was almost 40 years older than me. He was a World War II veteran, and my uncle was 15 years older than him. He had two sons, but they had no children. So my uncle was kind of like my de facto grandpa, and he was a storyteller and a fisherman and a hunter and a trapper, and he was an amateur archaeologist, and he did Civil War reenactment. So needless to say, it was a great way to get started in all of this. And
Yeah.
my perspective with the outdoors is it's almost a dual perspective. I have a very historical view of being in the outdoors. Like, to me, it's not just going out and participating in the sport. I like the history of the area I've been in. I like to connect with the thought of what those who came before and settled these lands did, in whether it be muzzleloader hunting or bow hunting or anything. There's a very historical background enjoyment I get from not just going out to a certain place and doing these things, but to understand the history of when guys had to do it not for fun, when they did it for what they had to eat. So it's funny. Here goes another one to your old story. I'll say when I started archery hunting, I got out of the Marine Corps in 1987, and bow hunting. Like I'm gonna sound like an old man here, Roy. It was a whole different ball. It was a whole different ball game. I mean, we didn't have. I couldn't go on YouTube to learn how to bow hunt. I
No.
couldn't. If your newsstand or your local grocery store where you bought your magazine didn't happen to carry a particular magazine, you weren't going to have that information. You had no idea it was out there unless you went to the library and found it. Videos were just starting to come out where you could watch a hunting video. So I was actually leaning on the information that I had from school and from my uncle. And I went out and bought a Bear Whitetail 2. It seems to be that everybody started on that Bear Whitetail 2. 70-pound finger drawing that thing. So there's a place out here in Cleveland called. I'll start off with the story of my first successful bow hunt. We had a public land out here, and there's a place up there. I'm actually in Dayton, Cincinnati area now. There is a place up there called West Branch Reservoir, which is a pretty big public hunting area for the Cleveland area. And I had gone out there to try my hand at bow hunting. And Roy, I'm sure you remember these. You remember the old climbing stands that were wood and aluminum, and they were like
Yeah.
two pieces, almost like a swing set chair, and it was pretty dang on dangerous. But I got up in the tree with that, and I was wearing my woodland camos from the Marine Corps. If they had mossy oak back there, I was not aware of it myself. And I was up there with my aluminum arrows and my good old bear whitetail too. And I got myself a nice doe, and I put that arrow in there, and she took off running. And now, knowing I have really no experience, just know how to shoot the bow, and I'm out there. And I get down from my stand, and it's starting to get dark, and that deer's nowhere. I knew nothing about tracking a deer, nothing. So I'm like, where did this thing go? Isn't it supposed to? Because I shot deer with a shotgun before here in Ohio, and you walk a few steps, it's right there. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting there going, where the heck did that deer go? And I'm walking, and I see a guy come walking towards me from the other. There was a big meadow between two tree lines, and I look and I see a deer, and I'm like, oh wow, there's my deer there. And I go up, and it didn't have my arrow in it. It had an orange arrow, and I had a green fletching on my arrow. So I keep walking, and this guy walks up to me, and I says, hey, you shoot a deer? You had a green arrow? And he's, yeah. I said, it's right over there, or a orange arrow, I'm sorry. And he says, are you looking for your deer? And I said, yeah. He goes, right inside the tree line, green arrow. So he had found my deer. I had found his deer. He was a few years older, but still a pretty young guy, probably in his early 30s. And we drug our deer back to the parking lot together. And I was on my way home with that thing tied to the roof of my 1973 Maverick. And and that, that was nothing unusual back then to see a deer tied over the roof of a car and heading home that way. Now I think people be throwing eggs at you or something.
Or rocks or something else,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
how could you? Well, we know how to get our own food.
yeah,
Yeah, my first compound I shot was a bear whitetail too, as well. Is my
yeah. Well, I
brother's.
think it was very popular, very popular.
Yeah, well, it's one of the first ones that you could really get. There was, you know, the mid 70s is when they really come out where you could actually find them. But in the late 60s, when the first compound was designed, but nobody could really, you know, knew what to do with them or even find them. I know in the 60s when I started, it was even before then, and you had your choice of recurve or longbow, wood or fiberglass, and your arrows were aluminum, or wood, or they could be fiberglass if you got fishing arrows, and then you had feathers or feathers. What style of feathers you want?
Yes,
I
yeah.
still
Well,
shoot
it's a
feathers.
lot of different gear nowadays. I
Yeah.
was sitting in the sporting goods store one time, and I was in the aisle with all the scents and all the scent lock and this product and that product. And some older gentleman comes in. He's probably in his early 80s, and he's looking at everything. He looks at me and he goes, I wonder how much of this is for the deer and how much is for the hunter.
Uh, quite a bit for the hunter.
Yeah.
I know. My cousin one time he said he's talking to somebody that made fishing lures and stuff, and he's all the different colors. He says, they got about 12 different colors. Only two of them work. The other 10 are just for the fishermen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Elk don't know how many legs a horse got, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
it's starting out in those times. And the first one I bought was it was American Challenger. The High Country had bought them out, but yeah, it was one of those poured magnesium risers. And I've told this a long time ago on the podcast, but I was getting ready for hunting season, so I'm down at there. That's when I belong to an archery club, so I'm down here, you know, fairly late at night because by the time the kids go to bed, I go down and shoot, and I cannot get the sights adjusted. No matter what I do, I'm constantly adjusting sights, and I'll shoot three more rounds, and I got to change them. Shoot three more rounds, and they're still way off. So finally, I says, I'm just going to go up close to the backstop. So I'm 10, 15 feet away. I want to see where it was going. I drew back and shot, and I'm holding the bottom half of the bow. The top half comes back and hits me in the chest.
Oh no.
My riser broke in half.
Oh no.
Now, if the new ones, the chances that happen are pretty slim, because they're machined aluminum, not the poured magnesium risers like used to be, and you air pocket in them. And what it was doing was it was slowly breaking
Right, right.
and moving, and then I'm trying to adjust with the movement, just the movement, and then all of a sudden when I shot, that shock just finally, you know, took it out, and
Well,
then I'm
hopefully you didn't get
scrambling.
hurt.
No, just a little bit of smack in my chest. I'm getting hit harder by June bugs riding a motorcycle than I did by that, but
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah, I've
The
I've done
bugs.
that in a shirt, and all of a sudden this June bug. I'm driving down the interstate, you're going, 55, 60, and that little June bug
Right.
hit me right in the chest. It's like, bam, oh. So yeah, I get hit harder by a June bug than the bow hit me. But everything's all tied together, so the strings and stuff, so it didn't come back and hit me in the face or nothing. But still, that was a surprise when it broke. And now I'm 2 weeks out of hunting season. I got to try and find a new bow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That had just happened this year.
Oh no, this is many, many years ago.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay.
this was probably in the early '90s.
I was gonna say, I thought you said you had a high country in
Yeah, High Country bought them out, and then so they sent me a High Country bow, and I get this bow in, and the stickers on it just all messed up. So I they sent a new limbs in, and they were just as bad. And it's like, finally, then I got my shop. I had my shop, and there was a guy that did High Country, and I took it down to him, and I says, okay, I'll never sell it. You're a High Country dealer. And it's like, well, Hyman Holness says, okay, what would you sell it for? Okay, how much profit you need? That's what I'm going to sell it to you for. I was like, I didn't pick it because I was going to make $0 on it otherwise, because I
right, right.
just didn't like them. They might be a good bow, I don't know, but I just never had a good experience with them. And then after that, then I bought my first PSE, like many many years ago, and then here in the late '90s, sometime, I'd saved up enough, and I got a Matthews Q2. And then I'd only had it maybe a couple of years, and I bought a sporting goods store that had bait and tackle as well as archery, and so there was a PSE dealer. So I went down to the dealer school, and part of the dealer school was to get a bow. And that was like 2001, 20 some years ago. Um, so I went down, and I told the guys, like, okay, because I had to pick a bow. I could pick any one I
Right.
wanted. I said, okay, currently, I'm shooting a Matthews Q2. Which one of these PSE bows would what I want to shoot that's going to be just good, if not better, shooting? And so then I end up with the PSE Carrera. It's a 2001 PSE Carrera, and it shot just as good, if not better. It was faster. It was rated at about 15 feet per second faster. I think the Q2 was like just over 300, and the PSE was 320. This is back in 23 years ago.
Right. Don't
And
seem that
now,
long, does it?
no, no. And I had no problems selling the other bow. I sold that, and I sold my other PSE. And back then they used overdraws and everything else to get some speed out of it. And the rest I had on it was one of those that you to adjust the two pins. You have to take the outside pin off to move the inside one, put the other one back on. If it's not right, I got to take it off, put it back, move it. And I finally got it set up, and I was shooting aluminums, 2512s, Eason double X 78s, which is a one and a half thousand straightness. I always shot the straightest arrows I could get, and that one was um, all set up for it, shot perfectly. So when I sold it, told the guys, like, okay, shoot 2512s. Unless you're going to change the rest, don't switch arrows, because it shoots perfectly with those arrows. And several years later, he called me up and I didn't make a string for him. So
Yeah.
yeah, he still had it, and who knows where
I
it's
haven't
at
heard
now.
those numbers in a while.
But yeah,
Now we're
yeah,
doing
it's
340s and 400s and
it, and it's weird too. I get used to a PSE did them. 100 spine was the weakest, 200, 300, 400 was the stiffest spine. And at the
right.
70 pounds at what I shot, the 300s were just fine. That's what I needed for mine. Now, a lot of the other ones, it's got something to do with deflection or something, but they're different numbers. the higher numbers are the weaker ones. So I think it's more how much deflection they're having or something. I don't know, but their numbers are backwards. So as long as you realize that and look on the chart, get the right one. But
I'm lucky. I got a young man who builds my arrows for me, so I just he just tells me he does all that, tunes my bow and everything like that for me. But I'm just heck, I shot that whitetail too all the way up to almost 2011. There's like 33 deer in that bow. I just, with my fingers, well, now it's been like 10 years, but I just recently went to a release. I was shooting with my fingers because you could see behind me, I have the recurves. And every
yeah,
now and then I'll fool myself and say, I'm going to take the recurve off and get a deer with the recurve. And, that rarely happens because you just got to get a little too close for that. And I'm not as stealthy as I used to be. But I do like to use the recurves every now and then. And actually, having been taught originally to be an instinctive shooter, I use a single pin on my compound now, and I don't usually move it. I just use that one pin, and I got it set up, for 20, 30, 40. No, I think it's actually 30 because I'm only drawing 55 pounds anymore. So a 40-yard shot wouldn't really be ethical. But I
yeah,
use that single pin, and I can put it where I need to put it out to 30 yards. That's just from shooting instinctive most of my life. I like those old recurves. I had a story that I have that one of those ones behind me there. I think it's that first brown one below the PSE takedown is it's an old oh well, the one below it's a Ben Pearson. That's the one if I go out I use now. That's an old Shakespeare, a Nikita. And I love that bow. That was my favorite compound bow I ever had. That one was made in 1964. And I lowered out of the stand 2 years ago and climbed out of the stand and stepped on it. And it
oh
delaminated. So she's just up there for a wall hanger now. And that I really like that. I mean, these people, anybody listening, if they want to, it's amazing the really nice compound bows you can get on, say, eBay, or I'm sorry, recurve bows that you can get on eBay, like that Ben Pearson's a 1970 Ben Pearson. It works beautifully, great bow, and I think I paid $80 for that on eBay.
oh, that's a good price.
Right, you can get a lot of nice. I mean, I like old stuff. I told you that before. I kind of
Right.
like when I'm trapping, I buy new traps. That's kind of my thing. But when it comes to bows, I like any kind of hunting, an old shotgun, an old rifle, a muzzleloader. I like that. I'm not ready to take the flintlock out to hunt with it yet, but I do like shooting it, and you shoot yourself a flintlock and it gives you an appreciation for those guys who used to use that thing to live.
Yeah, you don't get a follow-up shot.
No, no. Well, you don't with any muzzleloader, but sometimes you don't even get your first shot with the flintlock.
Yeah. Yeah, you pull that trigger, nothing happens, huh?
Nothing happens, or you just get as the old saying goes, you get your flash in the pan, and because you went off half cocked. So many of
Yeah.
these terms that we use today are all coming from the days of the black powder, or even just shooting terms in generally. It was or archery. They were all very intricate to staying alive in this country, and it's not as long ago as people think.
Yeah, it's not just it's amazing just from the first compound designed in the late 60s to what we have now. You know, that's well, that's 60 years later, but look where we're at now with compound bows and
Right,
the
right,
speed
amazing.
of them
Yes,
and the performance you're getting out of them. And then 10, 15 years ago, you go to some of these top shoots and you know you're getting 298 out of 300, 299, you're winning.
yeah,
And now at 299, you're in last place. If you don't get
yeah,
300, you're still not winning. You got to get 60, 58 to 60 X's in
right.
order to win these tournaments now. It's just
Yes.
getting that much better. And for those listening, the X is about a 1 inch diameter circle at 20 yards. So, yeah, stick a quarter up at 20 yards and shoot at it.
I don't think I could see a quarter at 20 yards anymore. I'd
I
have
know
to
I
put
couldn't. It'd
I'd
have to
have
be
to
an
put
orange
some
sticker.
optics on there.
It'd have to be an orange sticker so for me to see it.
Yeah,
But
right, yeah. Yeah, an
you
orange
know,
sticker, not a quarter though.
yeah, I used to take those little bitty small, I don't know, 3/4, 1 inch orange stickers, and I'd stick them up on the backstop, and that's what I'd
Right.
shoot at. And that's fun. And um, one of these podcasts here, I'm going to talk about setting up pins, and and one of the things that the different ways you can adjust your pins and how quickly to set them, and we'll get into that another time. But I want to hear some more of your stories. We're kind of a little bit limited today on time, so I want to hear some more of your hunting stories.
All righty. Well, I'll tell you something. Whether I don't know if you were aware of this, but I do some writing for some of the outdoor magazines and whatnot. And one of the things I stress is, and you'll probably know this. Back in our day, we called ourselves sportsmen.
Right.
Okay, if you were a hunter, a trapper, or a bow shooting, we were all sportsmen. And I don't think I think we've gone away from what that word really means. And this being a sportsman and being helpful to others and to be respectful. And so I'll tell you a little story here. So when I would grow up, as I said before, my uncle and my dad, I would go hunting with them often, and we'd go to a place called Napoleon, Ohio. If it's up in northwest Ohio, probably by kind of in the area of Findlay and Bowling Green, and they knew a farmer out there, and we'd go pheasant hunting. My dad loved to pheasant hunt, and it was a lot of fun. And he had a barn with the old potbelly stove and a little room with some cots in it where we actually stayed out in the guy's barn. And we would go out there, and my dad and my uncle both had single shot Harrington and Richardson shotguns. I still have theirs, and I have mine. And they would carry if you could picture it, they would carry the extra shell in their forefinger. And I seen my dad and my uncle knock down multiple pheasants with a single shot shotgun, and they could reload faster and be more accurate than a lot of guys with pump shotguns. So that's what they hunted with. And then, of course, we get rabbits and whatnot. And those guys, they rarely came back without their limit. I might be lucky and knock down a bird here and there. Now, I was a 12, 13-year-old kid, but they would tell me stories that them growing up in Cleveland during the Depression, they would, now this is with their shotguns, mind you, they'd hop on the bus streetcar, take the streetcar all the way till the streetcar line ended. Then they'd get on a bus and they'd take a bus till the bus line ended. And then they'd walk a few miles out to where they went hunting. They'd go out and they'd shoot, try to get whatever game they got, and then they'd bring it back. Now, can you imagine a couple teenagers with a shotgun getting on public transportation today, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
and they would have a deal. It was a nickel for a shotgun shell. And my grandpa, if they brought back a pheasant, he'd give them another nickel. Everything they brought back, he'd give them a nickel to buy another shell. But if you missed, then that one was on you.
Yeah.
So that's how they started out hunting from Cleveland, going all the way out. Well, back then it was not as far as it would be today to go out to find someplace to hunt around Cleveland. But they would go out doing that, and they grew up with these single shot shotguns. So we're going to fast forward a few years, and I'm in the Marine Corps, and I always like to try to take leave to get back for hunting season. Now, back then, it was mainly coming back for rabbit, pheasant, and deer. The deer hunting craze hadn't really hit out here like it is today. I guess I can't explain it. Whereas you used to get one deer tag a year, and you were lucky if you got a deer. Now the deer management practices throughout the country and in Ohio have gotten way better. But in the 60s and 70s, there just weren't the deer out here like people would imagine like they are today. So, it was a little more scarce, but there was a lot more pheasant. There was a lot more small game, and pheasant and rabbit hunting were pretty big deals, especially like on Thanksgiving morning. It would be a big thing to go out rabbit and pheasant hunting with your dad, your uncles, your cousins, your buddies. That was a big thing. Now here I am home on leave, and I went out to, I think it was back then, it was went to the Kmart and bought myself a Remington 870 pump shotgun. And I'm thinking, man, this is gonna be great. I'm a big guy. I got making money now. I'm an adult. I'm a Marine. I can go in and buy myself a shotgun and get out there and have my cami on and stuff. And so I'm meeting my dad and my uncle out at this place, and I get out of this truck with this 870 pump shotgun, and they're looking at me like I don't know. They're looking at me like I've got the hair of Medusa or something. And I'm walking up to them, and my dad looks down at my shotgun. He goes, "What are you doing with that? We're not duck hunting." And I says, "No, we're rabbit and pheasant hunting." Um, I said, "That's what this is for." He goes, "Oh, that's a duck gun. You're not using that. That's not sportsmanlike." That was in their mind, using a pump shotgun to go out hunt pheasant and rabbit. To them, that wasn't sporting. And my uncle was more sympathetic because he seen how just crushed I was because I wanted to shoot that brand new gun. I wanted to get out there. And
Yeah.
my dad goes, "Go put that back in your trunk. I figured you forgot yours. I got yours in my trunk." So he had my good old H&R single shot out there, and we went out and had a great day. But yeah, there were a lot that, at least with them, like a pump shotgun was for duck hunting. It was unsporting to go out and I guess you weren't giving the rabbits or the pheasant a chance going out there with a single shot shotgun. So that was the way I was raised by those guys. And I mean, they were just it was just all about being a gentleman out in the field and treating the other guys out there. And I can recall a time when there was a dog was on a rabbit, and the rabbit, he's pushing the rabbit, it's coming towards us, and I see this rabbit coming. I'm getting ready to take aim at it. My dad put his hand on my barrel and put it down. He said, "That's not your rabbit." He said, "Somebody else's dog's on that. You don't shoot at that. It's today they'll shoot your rabbit and your dog."
Yeah.
So that's when these stories come to mind, I just think of how different it was out there back then. And I like to stress that, like we got to be good to each other when we're out in the field, whether we're bow hunting or we're gun hunting or whatever we're doing. There's a lot of people who are against what we do, and we don't need to make it hard on each other by being
Right.
jerks. Being a sportsman, I like that term. I try to consider that I'm a sportsman out there at all times.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You mentioned the H&R single shot. I remember being out with my brother. He had one of those in a single shot, and I've got the 870 Wingmaster. And
Yeah,
we're
yeah, I
out
got
there,
one.
and he's doing the calling, and the ducks come in. He gets the first shot off and the second shot off before I get my first one off, and he's got a single shot. Not only was he calling, but he dropped the call, shot the one, loaded because he did like you did. He had two shells like between his fingers, and so boom, shoot, there's his three shots. I got to plug it. I got three shots all I can have because we're out duck hunting. And it,
Yeah, I mean it's
I did a lot of my hunting with a with J.C. Higgins 20 gauge bolt action
all
shotgun,
right, right,
and
classic.
the thumb safety was on the side, and it was a
Right,
nice
correct.
solid
Yeah.
one. And the safety comes out by pulling it back, and goes on by pushing it on. And I've shot it so much because I don't walk around with the safety off. Safety is always on.
Right,
And I just got so used to pulling that up, my thumb would hit that safety as I come up, and I'd shoot, and they come down, the safety go on before I'm down. It's just automatic, my thumb just off and on. I missed more roosters when a hen would get up, hen, I step down, back up, safety's on. How did it get on? Because my thumb automatically hit that safety when I started down. And it's
right,
not just the habit you get into, and shot it so much. Then when I got my Wingmaster, where the safety is by the trigger, by back of the trigger, birdie get up, it's like, oh, it's gone. I missed more birds because I couldn't find the safety to take it off. And I wasn't about to walk around with it on. So I'd rather miss a bird than walk around with the safety off.
right. I mean, I can remember when I first got that whitetail two going out there, and my dad accused me of going out there to wound deer. He said, "Where
Yeah,
are you going with that?" He says, "All you're going to do is wound them out." I mean, there was a lot of people who felt that way about bow hunting, and
yeah,
that I was surprised when I was researching some of the rules. Crossbow hunting's been legal in Ohio since 1973, and I don't think I saw a crossbow until the 80s.
Yeah, it used to be legal for the firearm season here in Nebraska, unless you had, a physical limitation where you couldn't
Disability,
draw
yeah.
on, yeah, a little disability, so you couldn't, use a traditional type bow. And then here, several years back, they changed it. They figured out it's like there's not really a big advantage for crossbow.
No,
No, there's not. It's cocked all the time for you, but you can't let down on it. You got to shoot that bolt.
right.
So either you're shooting a field tip shooting on the ground, or you get one of those disposable ones that are one-time shot. So every day you go out, you're going to be spending money on a disposable arrow or shooting it. Um, I do know some people that say that you can uncock them, but you know what? That it's just asking for trouble, because if you start uncocking a crossbow and it goes off, no arrow in it, you will bust the limbs.
Yeah. I give a little handy homemade tip here. Get yourself one of your older bolts that you don't want to use anymore, and get yourself a washer, about a 2 inch in diameter washer. You got to find with a small hole, and you
Right.
screw that on with your field point. So you got that washer on the end of there, of course, sticking out, and you can shoot that into the ground, and that will decock your crossbow, and it'll just bounce, and you won't have to, it'll bounce off the ground, and it'll be 2-3 feet away from. That's what I use to if
Yeah.
I'm going to decock a crossbow. Of course, always got to say safety. Don't point it at your buddy because it's got a washer on it, and say,
Yeah. It's
"Hey,
still gonna
watch
hurt.
this."
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, watch this, right?
It just makes a
You don't
bigger
want to do
hole.
that. No, crossbow. I mean, I remember the first crossbow I ever had was like, I think it was a Barnett Wildcat. And I'm glad, and it was a recurve crossbow, and I got pretty accurate with it. I'm glad I never saw a deer with it though, because I mean, in reality, I don't know how far out. It said it had the draw weight I needed, but boy, I don't know. I don't know on those old crossbows. I mean, now you got these 10 points and whatnot. Well, look at that new one. What is it? The Raven shoots 100
Yeah.
yards. I mean, that's crazy. My buddy's dad's got one of those. It cocks itself. It shoots 100 yards. And I mean, I don't have anything against any of that. I used to be an archery snob. Okay. I was like, uh, I was against compounds till I got a compound. But I mean, I was like,
Yeah.
these crossbow guys and this and that, and they shouldn't be allowed to be out here. And, I admit, when you're young, I've gone through my stages. And, so I didn't like these crossbows. And then one year I had to have hernia surgery, and it's getting close to bow hunting season. And I asked the doctor, I says, when can I start drawing my bow again? And he says, well, what pound is it? And I said, 70 pounds. He says, yeah, probably October. And I said, October, I can't wait that long. And he says,
Yeah.
they make them in lower poundages, and I'm like, yeah, I was going to do that because I was still young enough to think that 70 pounds, how do I put this? 70 pounds had the draw weight had some correlation to your masculinity, and let's leave it at that, and so that I decided I had to use a crossbow. So now all of a sudden, I learned my lesson about saying, well, crossbows are bad. I think anything that gets people out in the field doing this, it's fine. I mean,
Right.
it may not be for me, but if you want to do it, that's great. Do it. I mean, I'm, I love archery, and I'll be honest. When it comes to archery, my main enjoyment is just shooting at a target. Not, I don't mean that I don't want to shoot an animal. I'm just saying that to hunt with it. I'm just saying, like in the summer, I enjoy going out and flinging arrows in the backyard as much as I do going down to the pond and fishing or something like that. I enjoy the actual zen of archery, and of the sport in and of itself. And to be honest with you, when it comes to hunting, like I'm a trapper more than first and foremost. Okay, a trapper, hunter, fisherman, all that. But when it comes to hunting, I'll be honest with you. If I could shoot with a gun all year round, I probably wouldn't ever take the bow out there. People are going to be gasping and crossing themselves hearing me say this, but I want the best opportunity to put meat in the freezer. So if
Right.
I could take my 350 Legend out every day, I would. Excuse me. The main reason I bow hunt is because it's a longer season.
Right.
My enjoyment of archery is more just shooting. We all know that. Any of us who picks up a bow understands that. But when it comes to what I'm going to use to hunt, I'm going to use whatever gives me the best opportunity to put some meat in the freezer. And I haven't shot a buck. This has surprised a lot of people. I haven't shot a buck since 2012, and I was raised on the old saying that there is no recipe for antlers.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not going to be shooting any fawns, but if it's brown, it's down. I'm not inclined to shoot a spike buck, but I'm not against the guy who does. You see, there's
Right. Yeah.
there's a lot of people make comments about they shame people for the deer they shoot. I've seen it, when I worked at the tagging station. Oh, I guess that's the best you could have done. I think people, if it's a legal deer, go ahead and take it. You're going for the meat. It doesn't matter.
Well, and if you shoot the fawn, my ex-wife used to call him venison.
Yeah.
Venison. What is veal? It's a calf.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't get
I
much
try
meat.
not to, especially the ones with spots on them.
Yeah, well, around here they don't have spots on them left by the time mutton season starts, but still, uh, when I first started, I had no clue how to tell how old it was, and so I shot one, looked like a adult doe, and I go up to it, and it's got little nubs. Okay, it's little fawn buck, and I didn't know until
Yeah.
finally one of the hunting shows. Hunting shows just basically are to brag about how good they are getting big deer and just for entertainment. And one of them actually made a mistake one time and taught something.
Hmm.
And what they taught was to tell how whether it's a fawn, it's an adult or a fawn. Look at the nose and the back of the head. Where's the eyes? If the eyes are further back than halfway, it's an adult. Because on the fawn, the eyes are right in the middle of their head.
Huh.
So from the nose to the tip, if it's halfway to the eyes, it's a young one. If it's the nose to the eyes is longer than the nose to the back of the head, it's an adult. So I was like, okay, now I can tell. Unless you see this great big huge body, deer come waddling in, and I don't see too many of those because I don't have spots that we can see those. But
You know, those shows, it's great to have all those shows now. I mean, I'm not going to knock them. I enjoy watching. I have my own favorites that I like, and then I even like watching Uncle Ted's infomercial for a half hour. There's usually 5 minutes of shooting in there, but I enjoy that. I enjoy him. By the way, I saw him live on his farewell tour this year, and he was pretty awesome. But
oh yeah,
but
I
these
met him a couple
shows,
times at the outdoor show that they had here in Omaha many years ago. Met him a
yeah, we
couple
love
times
them.
there.
These TV shows, these hunting shows. I remember when my son was coming up. He's 28 now, and I was telling him, this isn't what it's going to be like when you and Dad go out there. I said these guys are they're not of them. They're not all high fence hunts, but they're basically on land where they've set it up to be successful. We're going out in the public, son. If we see something that looks shootable, we're going to take it. So I like the fact that they promote the sport and get people out there and doing it.
Right.
Anything's good like that, but boy, oh boy, if you think you're gonna have that kind of success, I know I never did. I know I never had that kind of success. I still get pretty excited shooting a doe. That's good. I'm out there enjoying myself. But on that line of the young deer, I'll give you another little story here. So here I am out there hunting, and this is probably 5 or 6 years into my bow hunting. I was in my early 30s, and a doe came out, and I shot her, and I didn't see she was trailing a fawn. And this was a young fawn, but not ready to be on its own. And I'm like, oh boy, because I don't shoot. If I got a doe with a fawn, I'm not going to shoot it. But I didn't see it. So this fawn is standing there watching me field dress its mother, and then and it starts bleeding, and then dragging her back to the parking lot, and that fawn's following me back to the parking lot. But I mean, and
Oh,
this was terrible. That thing was so needy, should I say, or so not right, that I could reach out and touch it. So I called up the game warden and I said, look, this fawn, I didn't see it with the mother and all this, and it's following me and it's over here. And he says, oh, where are you at? And I told him where I was at the parking lot. He says, okay, I'll be out there. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, here comes the game warden, and he'll find some place for you, little fawn. He'll get you to the rescue and the wildlife rehab and stuff. And he comes walking out of his car, pulls his pistol out and shoots the fawn. And then
oh,
he says, you want it? And I said, what? He says, you want it? You don't got to tag it. You might as well eat it. It'd be pretty good. I said, I thought you were going to take it to a wildlife refuge or something like that. He goes, where? Where's there something like that? He said, that thing ain't going to live on its own. It's going to end up being eaten by a coyote. He goes, you might as well take it. I was like, that was pretty terrible. That was
yeah,
just a that was just a bad experience.
yeah, yeah. That's you don't like to shoot them when they're um, with a fawn
No.
and I had one come in one time and the doe was coming in with the fawn and the fawn bedded down about 15 yards from my tree stand and the doe walks off. I'm sitting there just watching the fawn, and next thing you know, the doe comes back and they walk off together. And now if a different doe would have come walking in, I'd have shot it. But I wasn't gonna shoot that one, with the fawn there. It was kind of fun watching.
I know I had a marginal one. It was about a year ago, and I was up in my tree stand, and I had it wasn't a fawn, but it was not a good mature doe. And it comes walking in front of my stand, and it's near the end of the season, and I haven't got nothing yet. And I actually, Lord forgive me, I actually drew back, but then I said, no, no, you're not doing that. I mean, this thing was a little bit bigger than my dog, and and so I didn't take the shot, but I was tempted. So, but I didn't do it on that one.
Yeah, real good meat, and I know
Oh
when
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
tell
It's
I'll tell new shooters, if a fawn comes walking in, it's your first deer, shoot it.
oh
And
yeah,
that's
oh
I
yeah,
told
yeah. I
my
agree.
daughter that when we took her out. It's like, and if there's a doe come in, after that, after your first one, then let's talk about letting the fawns walk and shooting adults and sure enough, a fawn and a doe come walking in, and it was a good sized doe by or fawn by then, and so she shot the doe and left the fawn walking.
Yeah, I mean that's of course. We had a I'm fortunate that where I work we're allowed to hunt the property, and it's got 88 acres there, and we had a new hunter out there, and he shot a spike buck. It was a smaller buck, and one of the other guys was talking with my buddy, and he says that deer's kind of small. Is it okay for him to shoot at? My buddy says, well, it's okay for him to shoot at, but if Bob would have shot it, I would have punched him. So, it's all relative, right? It depends on your
Right.
experience level, and once again, I try not to deer shame, shall we call it, anybody, because there's enough people against us out there. We don't need to be against each other. That's for sure.
Well, you do get quite a bit less meat, but it's real tender.
It is.
So
It is.
would you rather have more meat or really tender meat? And the color's not even the same.
Right. 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 I mean, it's just like a big buck. I mean, you're going to get a couple 100 pounds of jerky, right?
Yeah, yeah, do something with it because it gets,
If
the
it's
old
in the
old
right,
bucks.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's not
So
gonna be near as good. So
no, no, no.
yeah, I prefer I normally when I'm out hunting, I'm hunting for the does. If a buck
Oh
comes
yeah,
by, I
for
won't
sure.
pass it up, but I'm not out there waiting for a buck. If a doe comes by, I'm gonna shoot it. I'm not gonna wait. It's like, I can only shoot bucks. Now, I did go through doing that when in Nebraska you only got two tags. That's all you could shoot was two deer. And I'd get two tags, two archery tags, and I'd fill the first one with whatever doe, whatever come by. Because I started middle of September then. And then I would only hunt bucks until about end of November, December timeframe, and then I'd shoot whatever come by just to fill the tag. So then I knew I had 2 deer, and I'll wait for a buck until later, and then I'm going to fill my tag. And that's what I used to do. Now they get, you can get lots and lots of tags now.
Right, right, right. Now I usually get one tag every year, and like I told you, I've been pretty much switched over to trapping. I'm doing my best to knock down that coyote population, which I don't know how it is in Nebraska, but here in Ohio, when I started hunting trapping in 1975, I'd never seen a coyote. And there may have been some down in southern Ohio, maybe where I'm at now, but I mean, it was nothing like it is now. And we're seeing here we're seeing the population go down, and unfortunately, because fur prices are going down, not as many people are out trapping, so we're having more nest raiders. You got more possums and raccoons, and that lowers your turkey population, and that lowers your
Right,
pheasant. And a lot of people, like, they blame a lot. Now the coyotes, they do their damage with the fawns, but when it comes to your game birds, they're getting a lot of blame that is really on the raccoons and the possums.
right. They eat a lot of the
They're
eggs.
they're your nest raiders. I mean, a coyote will eat eggs if you can find them, but your raccoons are going to find them first and get them. So I've, should I say, evolved or devolved, whatever you want to say. I've gotten to the point with where I've really gotten into trap, and I would encourage other people who hunt, bow hunt, to give it a try, because the one thing I do like about that is every morning's like Christmas. You set your traps out there and then you go check them. You don't know what you're going to get every day. So it's like that feeling of Christmas morning when I go out in the morning and run my trap line. I don't know. Am I going to find something today? Going to be the day? Is this going to be the day I finally get my otter, or am I going to have a couple big beaver or a mink or whatever? So I would encourage people to try it. It seems to be having a little bit. We're having a little bit of a resurgence now, but it's good for the environment, and it's good for managing the populations. As less people hunt and trap, we're getting more rabies, more distemper,
Right.
and problems like that. So it's something you can do at the same time. And I know it's led to a lot of things. I started trapping, and now I'm tanning and doing my own tanning and making fur garments. And I mean, you could just it's the whole lifestyle, really, that
Yeah.
one leads to another, that all started when I picked up that longbow, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You never know what takes you on what path.
Well, being outside, it's always about being outside. I would also encourage people that if you got an area you're hunting or trapping or fishing, take the time to look up some of the history of that area. You might be really, really surprised that some of the history that's gone on in the area that you're just walking through. Keep your eye on the ground too, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of neat stuff out there that you can find.
Well, and one place I was hunting, you could see the tracks still from the wagons from the Oregon Trail went right through his property.
Oh,
And,
right, yeah, out
you
by
know,
where you're at, right.
yeah, there right through his property. You could still see some of the ruts from all the wagons, and not much anymore because things grown up and then they put houses in, up the hill. So a lot of those things are going to disappear. But just over time, the ground railroad, but there was still a little spot you could see where it was. Um, but just barely. If you knew it was there, you knew it was the trail. But if you didn't know it was there, you'd have walked over it and not noticed it. But
Right, that I find that kind of stuff fascinating. You know what I mean? You're I read a book recently, being in southwestern Ohio, and I didn't grow up down here, and I was reading a book called The Frontiersman, and they start telling a story about a man who was captured by the Shawnee Indians, and a slave that they had adopted, a runaway slave named Caesar, was was trying to help this man escape. And it's Simon Kenton, actually, he's actually a historic person. But the funny thing is, I'm reading this book, and he's saying, yeah, you can get down to this creek here. They call it Caesar Creek because it's where I fish. And all this time I'd been hunting at Caesar Creek and had no idea that this was actually a highly historic area where this former slave who'd been freed when the Shawnee killed his owners, his masters, whatever, and adopted him into their tribe. And this was his hunting area where the creek is. And I've been hunting and fishing that for the last 5 years and never knew that's where it got the name Caesar Creek, you know. And it's so there's things like that that are just so fascinating, you know, to
Yeah.
me. Maybe because I'm getting old. And you know, but think about, there's another thing I was thinking today when I was thinking about what the heck are we going to talk about, because I don't know who'd want to have me on their podcast, but here we are.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're getting short for guests or anything, but I was thinking, you know, when you think about this, having had older parents, and then my uncle who taught me all this stuff, he actually had met in his younger years Civil War veterans and cowboys, like real honest to good guys who worked out as cowboys and guys who were in the Civil War, because when he was younger, they were still alive. Now that's just coming to me. We're not that far separated from those times. You
No.
know, just there, you know, there's people that I knew that were alive when all these people were alive. I mean, these are we've come so far. We think that these people who went on the Oregon Trail, that could be your great grandma. I mean, it's really not that far removed. We've just removed ourselves that far.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you go to the woods, they're right there. They're right out there waiting. And we're really not, we're only as far separated from that history as we separate ourselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's
I think it adds an enjoyment to what we do. That's just me. I know, you know, some people are just going to go out there and try and whatever makes you happy. But I think there's so much more to being in the outdoors and really absorbing it and being thinking about it and about, hey, you know, I'm out here in these woods, man. This is how this whole area used to be.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and you know what could have been coming down there, you know. It could have been, I could have been in danger of my life walking through here, and maybe I still am. Who knows? There's some
Yeah.
weirdos
Who
out
knows? Yeah. Well, we kind of come up on a time we need to end it, but I've been enjoying having you on, and we have to have you back on again, and we can talk more about trapping and you know, and how that can help out our deer population and pheasants and quail and everything else, and you know that'd be another whole good topic on there, and
anytime, Roy. I didn't know what you wanted to do, but I figured
yeah.
it's archery show, so I'd tell some archery story.
Well, we start with archery. That doesn't mean we stay there, but you know,
Anytime, Roy. Anytime.
yeah.
I'll talk for trapping longer than I'll talk about anything else. Let's be honest with you.
Yeah, maybe we'll have one just special on trapping and what it can do to help out our deer hunting and everything else. And I had a trapper one time, and he says some of the things that you see out trapping, you can relate to, you know, what the other deer doing because you're out there all the
Oh
time.
yeah,
So we
it's
get into a big conversation on how trapping
definitely
does
good
all that.
scouting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been really fun talking to you, and we'll have you on again, and it'll be a lot of fun. There's so many things we could talk about, you know, when
All right. Well,
you've been doing this for a while.
I appreciate you having me on, Roy. I really do. I enjoyed it, and I'm honored. I can't imagine why anybody would, you know, want to hear what I have to say. But okay, I'm sure never stopped me before.
Well, you know, we all have stories,
Oh
and you
yeah.
know, even the person that's never shot a bow before in their life that's interested in getting started, they have interesting stories. So, you know, we talk to, you know, beginning archers to pro archers, semi-pro, Olympic archers. We talk to vendors, you know, that manufacture stuff. Just everything is just, you know, hey, let's get a place we can talk about archery in whatever form it turns out.
Sounds great. I appreciate you having me on today, Roy.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101, and with Bob here, we'll have him on again, and we'll talk more about some of his adventures because I know he has a lot of stories that we can share, and we'll go from there. So we'll see everybody later. Remember, you can watch this on the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, as well as on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. And then the audio is available on Spotify as well as Audible and a couple other places. I think Apple Podcasts has it, and I can't remember where I'll post. I go to Spotify and they just post them all kinds of places. So we'll see you on the next one, and let's have fun. We'll talk about this again another time. So we'll see you everybody later, and thanks for watching and listening.